Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the NRG Series Team Trio event today. $10,000 on the line. So much to play for. If you're a fan of Standard, if you're a fan of Modern, if you're a fan of Legacy, well, this is the channel for you. Over the next 7 rounds before we cut to that top 8 and we crown ourselves a winning team. I am joined today by none other than Devon O'Donnell, Doomwake himself, and my name, well, I'm Will Hall, better known on the internet as Will Hall EXP. And while we're setting up the feature match and we got getting our players sat down ready to go, we're going to talk a little bit about Magic in 24 hours, basically. Let's hypothetically say some cards are not going to be legal in some sort of format. So I'm just going to start. We're going to start this Legacy because that's what we kicked off last round. Let's hypothetically say Grief is now no longer allowed in that format. What do you think the format looks like?
I'll be honest with you, Will. I haven't been paying a ton of attention to Legacy, but I would imagine maybe people go back to playing a little bit more tempo decks. We saw a little bit of the Grixis tempo style deck with Channeler and Nethergoyf. That one looked pretty good. I mean, it's really tough to say because it feels like Grief is kind of keeping a lot of different decks out of the format. So, I would imagine that the format will open up a little bit, probably go back to a lot of those tempo decks, and it's tough to say past that though.
What if we said like Reanimate was banned and not Grief?
Mm, I feel like people would still play Grief in the
So do
tempo
I.
decks, so I don't know if that would change a ton. But we're gonna head right down
Oh,
to
we're
standard,
down.
and Will, who do we have here?
Yeah, well, we've got you might have heard of him before. Callum Dunworth. He's some sort of streamer. He's got an all right sized audience that follows him. Got a pretty good beard, I'd say, on him. Well known for the beard. Also, his lovely flamboyant shirt. But we're gonna have a matchup here, kicking off in standard. Grigori aggro versus Demir mid range. I know this is your format at the minute. How's this gonna go?
All right, so Caleb is playing Demir Midrange, which is a deck that was very, very popular in the last standard format. And kind of the idea is you're playing a ton of cheap flyers. You have Spyglass Siren, Deep Cavern Bat, Fairy Mastermind, and there's one copy of Plume Creed Escort. So a bunch of cheap flyers, Gix Yawgmoth Praetor to kind of curve the flyer into the Gix and be able to draw additional cards that turn. And then a lot of removal, cut down, go for the throat, some counter spells. So it's we started on the Grixis tempo deck in the last round, and that's sort of what Caleb is doing. A little bit less powerful, of course, but there is a lot of tempo elements here. And then for Frederick, we have Golgari, well, it says Golgari aggro. I believe, let me take a look at the deck list here. It's very similar to what we saw last time, where Deep Cavern Bat, Mosswood Dread Knight, all that kind of stuff. The one thing I will mention about this Golgari deck is there's actually none of the Innkeeper's Talent Vraska combo, which has, been very, very popular as of late, but those two cards are not present in Frederick's deck. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. How does this deck stack up to Golgari, or excuse me, Demir without the combo?
Looking at the sideboards, and I must say my limited experience in the new standard that's come around is this looks like it's going to be a lot of like a Jund mirror of old. We're going to go back and forth, trading resources until eventually we're in a top deck battle, and whoever's going to rip the best top deck is going to potentially run away with this game.
Who draws more Bloodbraid Elves?
Hey, now that's a card that might be able to come back standard. That's
Shoot the sheriff. Shoot the sheriff on Mosswood Dread Knight. Now, you always kind of feel bad when you make that play because the Dread Knight can be cast from the graveyard, and that's exactly what Frederick is going to do. And yeah, this is kind of probably the single most important card in these matchups because it is very hard to remove from the battlefield. Every time you kill the Dread Knight, it can just come back the next turn. And every time it does come back the next turn, that's going to be an additional card for Frederick. And it's, basically Caleb is going to eventually run out of removal spells. And every single time Caleb makes that exchange, Frederick is going to be up a card in that exchange. But it looks like Caleb just wanted to buy a little time to cast this Aclazotz.
Bat God's down. That's it. Let's go. I don't know. I would sing Bat God the song, but I'm not that well inclined. But this is a good one, especially in the grindy sort of matchups, because it's very, very hard to actually kill this card, right? That we're going to see now. Go for the throat. It actually just transforms it into the land side, which now once we get to the top deck sort of sketch where players have only got one card left in their hand, we can transform it back into the Bat God. And just having a 4/4 flyer with lifelink itself is good enough. But The kicker is it makes you discard. It can make more bats. It's really, really cool. We might see how that moves going forward. But here's another good hitter, Shieldred.
Do we have a lands in front gamer, Will? Is that what's
Yeah,
going on here?
I'm trying not to make it's hurting my soul as well as everyone else's. I'm focusing on Caleb's basics because these are the basics that I use. Urza Saga basics for the win. The W has got to go to Caleb kicking off this game number 1.
How about that Underground River too? The Ice Age River. Those
Oh, yeah.
Ice Age Painlands look so good.
Has a little look at the hand here. We've got one more removal. We got a Glisser, and we've got the. Talk to me about this 4-drop. I see this cropping up a little bit. Sometimes in modern little one-ofs, the hostile investigator.
Yeah, so that card is fantastic in these kind of mid-range attrition-based matchups where you pay 4 mana, you get a 4/3. Your opponent discards a card, so that's essentially an additional resource. And when they discard a card, you investigate. So basically, for 4 mana, you get it's effectively a 3-for-1. You get the body, they discard a card, and you're up that clue. So as we talked about, we mentioned Bloodbraid Elf, which was a card that was in these Jund mirrors of old, a way to generate card advantage. That's sort of exactly what Investigator's doing. Now, Caleb does have the removal spell for it with the trigger on the stack, so is only going to be a 1-for-1 here because that means Caleb doesn't have to discard a card, and Frederick will not get that clue. Now, notably, Aklasot's Caleb only has 1 card in hand, so we can flip that land again.
And this is what I mean about this nutrition battle that we're going to see going back and forth. This is a huge card in that. And Kim's got, well, we're going to start with bats, make sure the coast is clear, but we knew about that Glisser. So now both players empty, top decking. We're going to make ourselves the big 4/4 Bat God.
Yeah, and you have to. You have to imagine with both players top decking, well, this is going to be interesting because I was going to say Caleb is a massive favorite here because, has the Bat God, but Frederick does have the Virtue. And there's some good stuff in the graveyard. The Hostile Investigator, the Preacher. So a bunch of good, juicy and I think the Shieldred as well. So a lot of good targets. This is going to be quite the slugfest here as players just exchange a bunch of like really heavy blows back and forth. The Aklasot's going to attack. That's going to get Caleb a card, or it's going to get the last card out of Frederick's hand, and then the Virtue is going to get something back. And we see Caleb just getting really aggressive here, and I like this because you don't want to give Frederick a ton of time with that Virtue.
No, you literally you can't, right? Like that is the huge problem with it. Is the longer the game goes, the better that card will be. We did draw a Subterranean Schooner. I think that's how I pronounce it, and decided not to deploy it because it doesn't really do much this turn. It is very much a turn 2 play. But this sort of tempo element here, this is going to be 10 damage coming across here.
Yep, 10 damage. That's going to put Frederick down to 5, and Caleb's going to gain 6, go up to 18. And you can imagine, maybe the Virtue can get back Shieldred on the upkeep. That'll give Frederick an additional 2 life because Virtue happens before the draw step. That'll, gain Frederick a little bit of life, but I really don't think it's enough. And, Frederick is going to need, you kind of have to draw a removal spell here to at least get rid of the Aklasot's for a turn. But even then, it's, Caleb is at a high enough life total. You're not really going to kill him fast enough. And Caleb can, has enough life to work with and can probably just win the race with the bats at this point.
Well, if we can do what you said, hit removal spells, we get a clue token, we get the card for the turn, we can crack the clue token. If we get one of the kill spell, that'll kill one of these bats, which should open up some more of the cards that are hidden underneath the bats right now. So I like this. Go for the a cut down is one of them. That's going to get us back this removal.
Okay.
Now we cast
That'll
this one,
get
the
other
other
bat.
Yeah. Then we play the Glisser. Okay, and this is what. There's a lot of talk about this little cave bat and how good it is, and it's very disruptive. But sometimes it just collapses like a house of dominoes, like we've just seen here. One removal spell. Now, all of a sudden, we've got 3 creatures opposed to your 1.
Yeah, remember what I just said last turn about Caleb being, ahead on board? I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. Now, as long as Frederick is not going to die this turn, has 2 blockers for that Restless Reef, so Caleb really only has 1 good attacker here in the form of Aklasot's. That's going to, create a bat token off of Aklasot, or excuse me, it's going to get Caleb a card. There's no cards in hand for Frederick. And yeah, here, Frederick is going to take 4, fall down to 7, and is not really in danger of dying. I couldn't quite tell what Caleb drew. It looks like the hand is Shieldred and Tishana's Tidebinder, which is interesting because you could maybe Tidebinder the Virtue, but Caleb's going to go for Shieldred instead.
Yeah, Shieldred is just so powerful in this spot, especially when the tables are kind of.
Now we both have Shieldred.
Yeah. Is there any reason to use cards in your. So there's a shield red in both graveyards. Would I use my opponent's one over my one? Is there any cards that can backfire if I pick theirs over mine?
Um, I don't know. So before rotation, it used to be Odawara was a consideration where if you got theirs back, they could bounce theirs back to their hand. But without Odawara, Odawara is no longer in the format, and I don't think these decks usually play a bunch of bounce spells. Like I'm going to take a look at Caleb's list real quick. The removal is cut down, go for the throat, shoot the sheriff, phantom interference. So no bounce spells there, but that could be some consideration.
Okay, we lose a life, going a card deeper. I think we've got another shield red in hand if we go about losing it. 7 mana. How
Second
about
virtue.
second one? Yeeks. Okay, we're at 6 life. Can we get across that finishing line? We don't have any flying blockers, and the shield red.
Actually, wait a minute. No, I just realized something. So yes, the
I was
Tishana's
about to say that.
Tidebinder. So Caleb is going to Tishana's Tidebinder, Frederick's Shieldred. The Aklasot is going to come over for 4 points of damage, and Frederick is going to be at 2, and without a Shieldred of his own, is going to die to Caleb's Shieldred.
But
Assuming we have life total
we've got a
correct.
shield red in hand, so we discard this shield red, and then we bring this one back out from the graveyard in our upkeep before
And
we draw the
Legend
card.
Rule. Okay. So, okay, hold on. So Frederick's going to go to 2, right? Assuming we have life totals correct. Now, there is a situation with Shieldred versus Shieldred that you have to get into active player, non-active player, which means that whoever is the active player, their triggers go on the stack first, and then that would mean since Caleb is not the active player on Frederick's turn, Frederick's Shieldred goes in the stack first, then Caleb's goes in the stack, and that means that Caleb's resolves first with Frederick at 2.
So, and we can't even draw a card in response.
Right,
Because
exactly.
we'll take the dive. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we've just about managed to scrape and get across that line.
What a sick
Oh,
game.
whoa, no. We can get to the we can get Gix, right, and activate it. No, we've got no cards in hand to discard.
No, we have no cards in hand.
Oh, rough. That would have been cool. Okay, so Shieldred, Legend Rule, this
Is there a
Shieldred.
way? Okay, hold on. I figured it out. So if you draw exactly go for the throat, right? With Caleb's Shieldred trigger on the stack, you go for the throat, Caleb's Shieldred, and then pop a clue to gain 2 off yours. So it has to be an instant speed way to kill Shieldred.
All right, you found it.
Because there are 2 clues in play.
So at the minute, there's 2 Shieldred triggers on the stack, and Caleb's is going to resolve first, which means that Fred is going to die. We're going through all the possibilities. That's me. Yeah,
I think we haven't drawn a card yet.
We haven't drawn yet, no.
Now, okay, what if... Now, I'm trying to think of a situation where... What if you don't draw... Oh, okay, we're just going to scoop it up. I was going to say, what if you don't draw the... What if you don't draw the go for the throat? Then can you pop a clue, draw the removal spell, then cast the removal spell, then pop the other clue? But in any case, Frederick is going to pack it up, and that's going to be Caleb taking down game number 1. And that was a crazy game because, Caleb looked like he was pretty far ahead for the most part, but then that Virtue came down, and there was that big turn where Frederick had all the removal spells. So really fun game to watch.
Well, we don't need to watch some sideboard here because we've got 3 games of Magic for everybody. So we're going to jump across to our Legacy seat. All you Legacy fans out there, what? Oh, it says it. I was like, okay, there's a lot of permanents, that one land going on here. And I'm going to fatal push. Okay, sure. So we've got the Demir Scam list versus Rakdos Painter. Now, Painter is one of these decks that I kind of just lose to it a lot, and I'm still not entirely sure what happened when I lose to it. I'm like, how did I lose? What's the going on here? Talk me through what the basics here of what Painter's trying to do.
So the Painter deck has seen a lot of changes over the years. I think when it first started out, it was just sort of a mono red deck, and it was sort of all in on the combo. The combo being Painter Servant and Grindstone. But over the years, cards be introduced into the format that really have kind of shaped this deck and made it a lot different and a little bit more of a mid-range deck. They do still go towards the Painter Servant Grindstone combo a decent amount of the time, but they have so many other ways to utilize other permanents. Like they have, so this deck has, Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Let's go.
Which is a card that gives, exiles a creature from a graveyard and then gives your creatures with counters that same activated ability. And then they also have a card called Phyrexian Devourer, which I don't know if we can get this one up on screen, but it's been a while since I've seen this card. Basically, it's a 6 mana 1/1, nice card. But the important part is it says remove that it has the ability of remove the top card of your library from the game, put X +1/+1 counters on Phyrexian Devourer, where X is the removed card's converted mana cost. So if you have Devourer and basically, if you have Devourer, you can use the Devourer to exile and put a bunch of counters on all creatures because they all have that ability. So it's kind of this like weird loop, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this deck.
All right. Well, let's say that's a little glimpse of our faces, but we're gonna show what's going on here.
Surprise!
We're going to get rid of that Vexing Bauble because one already on the battlefield. Now, this is seeing main deck play. So whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, count on that spell, pay one, tap it, sacrifice it, draw a card. That is on the screen for everybody at home. Why are we seeing this in the main? This looks like a sideboard card to me, especially, from what I'm used to in Modern.
Well, believe it or not, Will, this is not just a one of to fetch off of Urza Saga. Camry has 3 copies of Vexing Bauble in the main deck. Now, we've seen Vexing Bauble in Modern as sort of, like you said, a sideboard card that's good against these decks that are trying to cast Soul Spike and Grief and all that stuff. But in Legacy, not only are there a lot more copies of Grief, but also Force of Will and Daze. So there's a lot more free spells that people are playing and a lot more, cards that it does shut off in a lot of different matchups. Solitude as well, all those elementals. So Vexing Bauble, very, very good. And I mean, the downside is you have to put it into your deck, but it also cycles. So even in the matchups where it's not very good, you can cycle it and, tutor for it with Saga, all that stuff.
I think we went in a circle there for a Phyrexian Dragon Engine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these aren't cards that I associate with Legacy too much. Maybe that's because I'm not a painted player. This one for 3 mana, double strike, 2/2. Enters the battlefield from your graveyard. You may discard your hand. If you do, draw 3 more cards, unearth 3 and double red. Why is this card in the deck?
So this is a card that so you saw the Goblin Engineer tutor for it and put it directly into the graveyard. And this is a way for the Painter deck to kind of utilize its extra mana. It does have a decent number of ways to jump up in mana. It has Ancient Tombs and the Mox Opal you see in play. So it has some additional ways to jump the curve, Simeon Spirit Guide as well. And it's a way to kind of fill up your hand after you've dumped all of your small trinkets onto the battlefield and help set up that combo, that Painter Servant plus Grindstone. The other thing that I want to point out about Goblin Engineer is how well it fights against removal. Where if you're going for the combo and your opponent has a removal spell for Painter Servant, you can just have the Engineer get back the Painter Servant and make your opponent kind of fight on a different axis that way.
Well, we saw a brainstorm there. 3 lands were found off it. Not exactly what you want to do, but then that's the beauty of fetch lands in this format is we can just put some of them back on top, crack a fetch, and we're good to go. Here comes Unlicensed Hearst. At least I think it is. I don't think that's a proxied
It
card.
is. No, no, it's
Something
hers.
wrote on it, but I'm not entirely sure what it says.
Yeah, and that Hearse is going to be able to take care of the engine if Nathan decides that he wants to. So there is 4 mana showing here for Camry. So there is the potential to just play another land and then immediately get back the engine. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't. Let me look at the wording on the engine. Of course, Unearth does not have reminder text. I believe there is a window where if you activate the Unearth, that the Nathan can respond with the Hearse. I think.
I believe you can respond to it being like
Because it's an activated ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to pick the Greaves. Lightning. No, these aren't Lightning Greaves, are they? These are the Lava Spur Boots, which give it haste. So now we can use that 1 mana and we can copy potentially that Goblin Engineer if we need to, or any other creatures that come down this turn. So I like that little interaction there. That's a little bit of spice.
Yeah, and then the Hasty Fable can copy the Goblin Engineer to set up more stuff down the road, and the Goblin Engineer is currently active as well. So I think it seems like what Camry is trying to do is get Nathan to spend some mana, or not spend some mana, but use the Hearse to get him, maybe like bait him into using the Hearse, because maybe Camry can set up a situation where you say copy the engineer, maybe you get something, you target, like say you get a second engineer, and then that goes and gets something. You can go engineer, sacrifice an artifact, target the engine. Nathan responds with hearse, and then you can respond with the other engineer, and then actually get the engine back. So it's interesting to see what Camry decides to go for off of this second engineer.
This is why I love Legacy in general. Like, there's so much like little interactions and details that happen that it's so minute, but every single thing determines the outcome of a game once we stack it up. Because as you mentioned, now we can put something in the graveyard, as we can try and swap one of them. As we try to swap that one, they can try and eat it. We can then swap again because we've got access to the double red mana. This is
Yeah, there's a
cool.
lot
I
of
like this.
weird stuff going on. And there's the Agatha Soul Cauldron. So there could even be a situation where if, Kamari goes for engineer, Nathan responds with hers, Kamari responds with the other engineer to get back the cauldron. Maybe that can exile the engine. And yeah, you see, we're just going for it now. So engineer, I couldn't tell what the target was. I
I
think he pointed to the
it's
cauldron.
I think it's cauldron. So in response, we're going to try and eat the cauldron on the dragon. In response to that, we're going to activate the one that, of course, has haste now, sacrificing this lava spur boots to get this back. Is this really that important as a combo piece?
The cauldron. Yeah, it's interesting. You also could have after getting the cauldron, you could have also cauldron to eat the engine with the her still on the stack. So I wonder if I
Oh
guess.
yeah.
Oh no, you know what? Kamara wants to hold up the hearse in case Nathan has like a reanimation type effect. Because that is,
Okay.
Nathan is playing the scam deck with Entomb and Reanimate. So you want to get the Cauldron in play, not necessarily because it's a combo piece, but because it's stopping Nathan from having a Reanimate line.
There's a wasteland. Getting rid of that ancient tomb, and then the
Oh,
follow up is. Okay, I already know this
you know what that is?
from draft. Is the only way I know this one from Cube. Sorry, is this is the is it something Goif, isn't it? I can't remember what the
It is. It is a Lurgoyf.
what's it on. I found it. The Borogoyf.
Barrogoyf, yes.
Death Touch, Lifelink, 3 mana, Time of Growth stats, but equal to the number of types in all graveyards, and toughness is +1. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards. If you do, you may put a creature card from among them into your hand. Why am I now seeing this in play?
So I agree with you. I have played a lot of this card in Vintage Cube, and I am very aware that it is phenomenal in that format. I haven't seen it a ton in Legacy, but it's nice here. As if you're expecting your opponent to have a lot of graveyard hate and a lot of ways to stop you from having reanimation, it's a nice backup plan where it's a threat that is, it's going to present a relatively quick clock. Lifelink can matter in racing situations, and it helps you mill over and find more griefs and maybe mill over copies of large creatures to reanimate. So it does make a lot of sense in the sideboard, and I believe Nathan has 2 copies in the sideboard. So it's kind of like when you're playing a dredge deck and you kind of have a plan B. This is kind of the plan B here for Nathan.
Oh, 4 cards, because 4 damage is out, so 4 cards go to the graveyard. Pick one of these creatures back to our hand. We're going to choose this Grief.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Will. I have no clue what that retro card is that Nathan milled. Any guess?
Um, I haven't seen. Oh,
Let
it's
me look at
the
the deck list.
Coffin Purge, isn't it?
Oh, Coffin Purge. Okay, haven't seen that one in a while.
No, or have I? Like choose only because I looked at it, I was like, what? Oh yeah, it's a cover patch. Okay. But now we've got access because we've got our fourth mana. We could hard cast a grief, but deciding to hold mana up, I do see double force of will. I'm gonna just say force of me. I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, the forces aren't super great here though, because we have the vexing bauble still in play. So the forces are, as of right now, turned off. So I'm not actually 100% certain if Nathan has any way to interact, because there's the grief, the force of wills, and I think it might be 2 grief, 2 force, and a troll.
I just don't know. There's one card I don't know what it is, and I'm trying to work out why we're not casting grief. Like I understand there's some cards on the other side, sure, but like we're repping something. I'm not entirely sure what we're repping at this point. I'm sure
Yeah, there's
we'll
got to be
find out.
something we're missing.
I think you're right. I think it might be a troll.
Yeah, 2 grief, 2 force, and a troll, right?
Yeah.
I think it is.
Mismatching
Okay.
forces as well. I'm just throwing it out there. I will name and shame.
Maybe Nathan hasn't passed the turn yet, and we're just thinking if we want to like cycle troll before playing the grief.
Can't do that. 'Cause we
Or
won't have
no,
enough
we did
mana.
pass the turn.
Interesting. But then I suppose we've still got a 5/6 creature with lifelink on the battlefield, so we're doing a thing. What we are going to cycle.
It's it's also entirely possible that maybe even if Nathan has no way to stop the combo from Kamari's side, maybe Nathan holding up mana will make Kamari think about not going for a combo if they can even set one up. So it could just be like a sort of a little bluff here and try to show of strength. As we see a fetch land here, going to find a sewer. But yeah, that Barrow Glyph is going to just really take over this game.
Yeah, it's cool actually. So this is kind of the deck that I play in Legacy. Or at least I've got the access to play. But I don't own any copies of this. Maybe I need to pick a couple up.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is Nathan kind of has multiple layers of disruption against the combo, has the hearse in play, and also has that coffin purge in the graveyard. So even if Kamari can, try to set up a combo involving engineer, or I believe that is, I think, a goblin welder, that little promo card off to the right hand side. Even if Kamari is able to set up a combo, it's very unlikely that the combo can work through two layers of graveyard interaction. And Nathan also picked up a consign, which can help counter artifacts or something off the top of Kamari's deck.
Okay, I think we find a that's a consign to memory.
Consign to memory. Yep.
Yeah, it is a consign to memory. I know that because I only just got my 4th copy of that card. For some reason, I opened so many boosters of MH3 and never got them, but I had to get them. That's a nice promo ponder, though. I'd like to see that.
What is that from?
That is
Secret Lair?
from no, it's not a Secret Lair. I think you've got to. Actually, is it a Secret Lair promo? I thought it was one of the Magic Con ones where you have to like spend X amount, or like Gen Con one or something like that. Like if you
Maybe.
spend
Okay.
so much, you get one of these turtle promo ponders. Magic Con, yeah, chat point out. Yeah, you spend so much at a Magic Con, you get that ponder.
Oh, what do we have here? So it looks like the hand for Kamari is a Fable, a Phyrexian Walker, a Surgical, and a Pyroblast. So interesting hand here for Kamari. If you're Nathan, not sure exactly which one of these you care about. I mean, I guess, yeah, it looks like he's just going to take the Fable and recognizes that without a way to remove the Cauldron from Kamari's side, Nathan is in a spot where he's kind of just content with not doing the reanimate stuff. And he just says, okay, I'm just going to have this this Barrow Glyph. I'm going to cast this Grief and I'm just going to attack you a bunch. So is really just trying to, realizing that the reanimation package is off. And we see Fable copying Goblin Welder. Interesting.
So that gives us more looks. We just need to get this. I suppose the hearse on the other side as well, which we can't ignore. By the way, that hearse is going to turn into a real threat. At the minute, it's a 5/5. If we wanted to,
Oh,
through it.
I think I figured out why Nathan didn't want to tap out for the Grief last turn, because that would make him go shields down on the Coffin Purge. So wanted to make sure that we had the Coffin Purge and the Hearse still available. And now we're going for Consign on something.
It's on the trigger to copy.
Well, the copy is an activated ability, so I'm assuming that whatever is being, I couldn't quite tell what he was targeting to be copied, but whatever that would be a triggered ability.
Interesting then. So yeah, counter activated or color spell.
It's only triggered abilities, right?
Is it of the copy of the?
Yeah.
The copy comes in trigger to go get an artifact. To that trigger of basically searching for your deck to find the artifact is
Right.
the one we've stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, because if that thing could copy activated abilities, we would have a stifle fetch land situation on our hand in Modern. So thankfully they worded that correctly. So yeah, I believe what happened there is Reflection copied, the copy ability resolved, and then we countered the triggered ability to go search, which I believe that meant that Kamari probably copied the Goblin Engineer.
We're only at 5 life, by the way. That means that Hurst is also lethal this turn.
Yeah, so if Nathan has a removal spell, you can just go kill one of the blockers, crew the hearse, and send in the clowns. Here, I mean, it's probably good enough. You can just use the grief that you just cast to crew the hearse, send in with all 3. Now, there is some consideration to not wanting to attack with the hearse, because maybe you're worried about, now that you only have the Coffin Purge available and not the hearse, maybe you're worried about Kamari being able to set up a combo, but having the chump block with the engineer and the welder makes it pretty unlikely that there's just not a lot of stuff left here for Kamari.
Is there anything that we could rip to just combo this turn?
Without a painter or a grindstone in the graveyard, I don't think so. Now, Cauldron can copy the welder. So you can copy the welder, put a counter on the Fable to make the Fable a welder. Then you can sack the Cauldron to get something
Well,
back, but yeah, not enough.
just a handshake's going to do. I think we drew another Cauldron for the turn, so that wouldn't be enough. But this is Team Trios, as we mentioned. So we get to go back to standard and see how that game's getting on, see if Caleb's able to take that game down again, because it looked really good. That first game was really close. Let's just head straight back down there and see how they're getting on. And
All right,
getting
what do we
on,
got?
they are. I see Liliana down there. I just love that Liliana is still seeing play. I don't care what format, as long as she's still seeing play. Love the Liliana of the Veil. Tick down by looks of it to get a creature off the battlefield. Looks like we've got one card on an adventure at the top of our screen. And then talk me through this little free drop that basically anytime I play standard now, I see it. It's the
Preacher?
Preacher. That's a
Preacher
lot.
is Preacher is fantastic because the 2/4 body means that it blocks a lot of other 3 drops effectively. Not Glissa, of course, but there's like stuff like Sentinel of the Nameless City and some other three power creatures that it just kind of holds off very effectively. And it just generates a ton of value. When it attacks, you either get a 1/1 or draw a card, depending on life totals. And it is another way for this Dimir deck to just present a bunch of 2-for-1s in these sort of mid-range style matchups. And that is really what it's all about, is just how many 2-for-1s can I put onto the stack in these kind of matchups, because both decks have a plethora of removal. It's really, we talked about this earlier, whoever draws more Bloodbraid Elves, and we joked a little bit about that, but that really is what's going on here.
So not only are we able to attack the life points and get some advantage doing that, we've also got Liliana attacking the hands. She's double-sided though, so both players do have to discard. Both players choose to discard a land, but because we attacked, we get to draw an extra card now off this Preacher, and it is a big Preacher at that. It's 4/6, and then is that a Tiebinder as he come down there?
Yeah, this was a beautiful sequence here from Caleb. So Caleb mapped onto the Preacher, saw the Tidebinder on top, attacked with the Preacher to draw the Tidebinder, knowing that Frederick would chump block, and then with the Mosswood Dread Knight trigger on the stack, killed a Tidebinder, the Dread Knight, to make sure that Frederick can't cast the Dread Knight from the graveyard. Very good sequence here from Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb's pretty good at this magic thing. I heard just on the grapevine. I heard that he's not too bad at this. Liliana's going to come down though. Tick down. That is going to get rid of the Preacher. Liliana,
yeah, this is a good follow-up here for Frederick, but with Caleb already having access to the Restless Reef, that can take care of Frederick's Liliana, and then Caleb has sort of the creature land advantage, I guess, as it were, where Caleb has a Reef and a Mirex. Frederick does have a Fountain Port, so has a little bit of ways to get his own creatures going as we lands in the back. Thank you, Frederick. And by Frederick, I mean thank you to the spotter at the table who caught that.
It's always awkward when you got opposing Liliana. It's like, do we want to spend our turn to get that off the battle, get the Lily off the battlefield this turn? I've got to discard a card. Do I just play everything out? Yes, so we're going to see this tick up. For the advantage of I get rid of the removal spell to have my Liliana as a removal spell next turn. This is going to be tick up in response. We're going to flash in my fame Mastermind.
Yeah, I was going to say, Caleb choosing not to animate the Reef that turn and discarding the Go for the Throat meant that we had a good spell left over, and Fairy Mastermind does qualify, because now Caleb can use the Mastermind to kill the Liliana and start churning out tokens with Mirex, because I think Caleb would rather start making Mirex tokens than use the Restless Reef to attack, because that just makes a wider board, and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. And, Caleb has the opportunity to either make a Mirex token or use the Fairy Mastermind. And it looks like Frederick, I think, with the amount of mana that Frederick tapped, I think we made a treasure token off of the Fountain Port.
Yeah, it looks like a treasure to me as well. So that means we can power out one of these bad boys.
Virtue, right?
So this is the actual card Virtue, not the adventure side. So at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Now, in this top deck battle where we're using a lot of resources, trading back and forth, this now being on the battlefield is huge, as there's not many ways of getting it off the battlefield over on Caleb's side.
Right. We talked a little bit earlier about how there used to be Otawaras where you could maybe Otawara something and then make them discard it. But here, without any Otawaras, there's no bounce spells in Caleb's deck list. So
Uh,
that virtue is kind of here to stay.
yeah. So Liliana got ticked up there. It looked a little bit like Duress was cast and got rid of the bat, yeah, but it was actually Liliana
Oh,
ticking up. Both players discarding. One was the Duress, one was the bat. Land for turn here for Caleb.
Duress
Now,
can't
yeah,
take care of bad unless you're discarding it to Liliana, in which case it can.
good style dresses as well. I like it. I like Caleb just hitting them all out the park. I do need
Urza
to ask
Saga all the
you.
way.
I need to ask you, and I need to ask chat. In the, I'm going to say likely um, convenience, maybe like it's very likely to happen. If you were to win a world championship and you had a card made in your honor, what would you like that card to be? Let's go. Which creature type would you like the card to be?
I have no idea. You can't put me in the spot like that.
What, you don't? I've had that since I started playing Magic. I was like, I know exactly what I want to be. I want to be a golem. I don't know why. I just want to be a golem. Okay, I want to be a free golem of some description.
You'll have to get back to me on that. Maybe later in the broadcast, I'll sit on it and think about it for a little bit.
All right, we'll check in round for round. Like where are we at now? Okay, I know the stats of what I want to be. I probably should be on theme and go for to try and be like a soldier or something. But
What about like a brushwag?
ooh, okay. Look, there is not enough of them printed in
There really
in
isn't.
Magic. Now this is a spicy one over on Caleb's side, which I imagine came out the. I think it came out the sideboard, but no, this. Oh no, we got one in the main. This is
Yeah,
gonna be.
there is. Let me look at the list for Caleb here. There is one Urtai in the main and one in the board. So
Yeah.
probably brought in the second copy. So Urtai is interesting because Urtai can also stifle the Virtue Persistence trigger for a turn. So that is something that Caleb, had access to at the targeting the preacher. But so yeah, we're going to counter the Deep Cavern bad. And now with Frederick at 13, I think you're kind of in Caleb's spot. You want to try and just amass a bunch of flyers and try to maybe close out the game that way. So Liliana could potentially. I was going to say Liliana can downtick to hit the preacher, but with the Fountain Port can make a token to sacrifice. So Caleb is just going to go upstairs with the Liliana. And
Oh,
okay.
great
I like
top deck.
that.
Sandbagging on that. So that's, we see this popping up a little bit in some other formats, but this is a Tear Sunder. So that's going to come down with kicker paid. So exile the Liliana, get it off the battlefield, which arguably was the scariest thing on the battlefield for Caleb because it was very close to ultimating.
Yeah, and very heads up here from Frederick, where you wait until Caleb's turn to plus the Liliana because you know that you're going to cast the Terra Sunder anyways. But then if Caleb has an extra card left over, then waiting lets you get that extra card. So, good timing there from Frederick. And yeah, now Caleb is in a spot where you can hit for 3 in the air. Maybe you can fire up the Restless Reef and offer the trade for Preacher. But then if you do that, then the Virtue can get back the Preacher and yeah, this is this is going to be a tight game to see how this kind of finishes out. Can maybe activate the Fairy Mastermind.
Yeah, well, look, if Killam can take this one down, the team wins. Okay, you can see all the scores at the bottom there. Killam's team, Nathan, took it down over in Legacy. So now we've just got Abant Nardu versus Jesco Control. They're at 1 apiece, and this game is at 1 apiece. So if they can win one of the last 2 games over on Caleb's side, they'll take it down, advance to 2-0 record. Remember, we've got 7 rounds today of team action for all you beautiful people out there. We had 89 teams taking part. So many people turned up for this amazing format. And we're going to go get another preacher.
Yeah. So second preacher here for Frederick. That, and Frederick has kind of recognized. I mean, I don't know what else is in the graveyard. Maybe there's not a ton of other good stuff going on. But yeah, Frederick's going to go to combat. And Caleb says, response, we're going to draw a card off Mastermind, trying to find a removal spell off of the Mastermind. Looks like just a couple of lands here for Caleb.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like a couple of lands. Don't think there was anything too fancy amongst them. Shield Dread would be great in this spot here. Oh, how about a Bat God?
That's pretty good. Remember how I said earlier that Caleb is at a point where just kind of needs to try to close the game out with flyers because the ground is off limits with those 2 preachers and the Virtue returning additional creatures. And now the Aclazotz is going to make attacking in the air nearly impossible. And looks like Caleb picked up a Mastermind. That is not what he's looking for at this point.
No, Mastermind can draw us more cards, remember? So hitting our land drop every turn is good because we can not only play our spells, we can also try and draw more. The only downside to that is we're going to let Frederick draw more cards, which arguably we don't want to happen right now. I think this Virtue is slowly just running away with the game exactly how it's meant to. Every turn, get another creature back from the graveyard. Now Caleb's got grip for the card, getting a bat back, having a little look's not too bad. Caleb's going to show I've just got this land after flashing that Mastermind, but now we've got a 1/1 life linker. That's also good against these Masterminds.
Yeah, and now that Caleb has the second mastermind, he can actually, activate one of the masterminds and then that'll trigger both of them. So basically you're giving Frederick one extra card, but then you'll draw two. So yeah, and heads up play from Caleb again is always going to do this in the upkeep. Shouldn't draw the card right now. Going to wait till Frederick's draw phase, I'm guessing. But basically, you do that in the upkeep so that I guess it wouldn't matter if the top card's a removal spell. Then Frederick can still use the removal spell to kill one of the masterminds. But has Frederick drawn for turn
Frederick has
yet?
not drawn for turn yet.
Yeah, we only have one card. Maybe we can get the
Might
judges
be
over there real quick.
Can't
Because
forget
Frederick
to
only
draw a
picked
card.
up one card, and the mastermind was activated. So Frederick, I think, should have a second card in hand.
So do I. I pass it down to the table. Batguard doing its thing, making discard. Going to generate some 1/1 bat tokens. It looks like we're going to get some little. Oh, in fact, loads of tokens will be generated here. We're getting some 1/1 life linking vampires. Oh, because it's not a land. It's lands that make the 1/1 flying bats. Correct.
Yes, the bat tokens are being generated from the preacher. So these the vampire tokens. Vampire tokens are being generated from preacher, and then Aclazotz. If Caleb discards a land, then you get a 1/1 bat off the Aclazotz. I like the design of Aclazotz where, it is expensive. You basically get what you're paying for. But then if you discard a spell, then okay, you get nothing. But then if your opponent has a land, that's a less desired card that you'd want them to discard, then you at least get something out of it. So I like the design of that card. All right, so what do we have going on here? So we see a bit of an attack. And yep, so bat tokens being made, and then Caleb, I think, did some chump blocking with the Deep Cavern Bat on the Aclazotz. But yeah, this is really just a situation of now not only is Caleb behind on the ground, can't really win the race in the air because the Aclazotz has lifelink. So, maybe can start firing up the Restless Reefs and go towards those, but then those get chump blocked by the vampire tokens. It's kind of an interesting situation here. Yeah, I think we're still working with production or just getting 100% of the ruling to make sure that we have the game state properly. I mean, from what we saw, right, there was the Virtue trigger, which got back bat. Caleb responded, played the second mastermind, let the bat trigger resolve, land in hand. Caleb, I believe, and Frederick had no cards in hand at this point. Caleb activated the fairy mastermind, which drew Frederick a card off of the mastermind, but I think that was still in the upkeep. So I'm not sure. We'll figure it all out.
Yeah, look, apparently for both players, they're happy that the two cards were drawn, so that the gameplay is going to carry on.
Maybe there was a land that Frederick played really quickly that we missed. I'm not sure, but
That's the only thing I can think of is like maybe there was a land drawn and played straight away, and then that's why there was no mana tap. But it is what it is. We're going to carry on the game nonetheless. It still looks like it probably won't affect this game too much, as Frederick is. I'm saying looking pretty favored right now.
Yeah, Frederick said, "You know what? I don't even need the extra card. It's fine. I get enough stuff going on." And now Caleb with 3 masterminds. That's going to mean the mastermind trigger, and then Caleb's going to draw 3 additional cards. So we'll have to see if that can be enough here. But this board state seems kind of insurmountable. The only card that I think Caleb could maybe draw to get him out of this is Gix's Command, where Gix's Command, as you can imagine, would kill essentially everything on Frederick's side of the battlefield, and maybe allow Caleb to put some counters on a Mastermind, as we see a third copy of Virtue.
Caleb does have a Gix Command in hand. I can see that as he was shuffling through.
Oh, okay.
But this has got to be an almighty swing, right? And
Yeah, so Caleb at 14 with one blocker. If Frederick goes for the cottage, Caleb chump blocks the Acklesotts. That's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 12 damage.
well, no, if we activate the cottage, we block the flyers. The cottage is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm counting.
Well, Caleb found
Yeah.
a shoot the sheriff to kill that temple. So
So math is off a
Acklesotts
little bit
down.
more. We're not activating the cottage, so this is just going to be try and win over a couple, 2
2, 4,
turns.
5. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Caleb gonna go ahead and get in front of one of the preachers. Take the rest. That should be 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe. 7 will make Caleb fall down to 7. And then that Gix's command should be able to clean everything up. And you can go Gix's command, blow up the board, maybe get 2 copies of Mastermind back. There's a second virtue here for Frederick. And maybe Frederick is in a spot where he doesn't even care that much if his board gets wrapped because he just gets back 2 preachers.
No, that's like, okay, cool. You've got the card that you needed, but you have to bear in mind, Kato had 0 cards. Has managed to get back into it with those masterminds, refill that grip. Having a little look now at Gix command, like, does this card do exactly what I think it does? And Frederick on the other side just sees 5 mana pushed to one side. Like, wonder what you could have. Cool. Maybe we can get that on this. Or look, I was about to say maybe we could get that on the screen, but Norm's all over it. Production is good at
On
this.
top of it.
Okay, 2 modes are we picking? Destroy all creatures, power 2 or less, and
Return 2 creatures back from the graveyard. I assume we'll get back the. Oh, one of the preachers was Caleb, so he could even just get back 2 preachers here. There's a Tidebinder. Okay, you could Tidebinder one of the virtues. Could go. I think Caleb has a land to play too, so we can get back Tidebinder, Preacher, play land, play Preacher, pass Tidebinder one of the virtues.
I think the last card for Frederick at the minute is a go for the throat. Just
Okay.
however that plays into the math here. This is a grindy game. I like this. This is what I like for standard Magic. I want a bit of back and forth. I don't want just someone to get completely steamrolled. I love these like mid-range nutrition value type games.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of exactly how these games this is sort of exactly how you would draw it up where, the Golgari deck firing sort of on all cylinders, had a bunch of removal spells, bunch of ways to get to this point in the game and now has 2 virtues and it looks like Caleb is going to stifle one of them. Now, the interesting thing about this is I believe Frederick has to choose targets for each of them and then Caleb can then choose which one he wants to stifle. Maybe if they're both targeting Preacher, it's a moot point anyways, but
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Oh, it wasn't a go for the throat. It was the investigator.
I
Hostile
want to read
investigator with last card
Tashana's
in hand.
Tidebinder. Okay, so Tashana's Tidebinder, it only Tidebinder says if an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, the permanent loses all abilities. Does not work on enchantments. So that Tidebinder is only a temporary answer to that virtue.
And at 7 life, we don't really have much life to play with here either, as we're going to turn around. This is going to be lethal. Here's the removal spell for the cottage. Go for the throat, getting that out of here. Making sure we've got nothing to do in response.
And then we can go trade here. And then I believe Frederick has, like you said, that hostile investigator. So presumably that'll be the cast here. And yeah, I mean, Frederick at 19, maybe Caleb can try to cross the finish line with these Restless Reefs, but it just seems really, really difficult for Caleb to fight through these virtues because every single time he's making an exchange, like every time he 1-for-1s, Frederick just gets 2 more cards the following turn. And not only are they additional cards, they're also immediate threats. Like Caleb has to answer everything because he's so low on life.
I like this line right now. I don't think we're taking it, but we are taking it. I say I like this. I like going Dread Knight, draw a card. If it's a land, great. I can play it, and it's the investigator. If it's not, it's another. I can just hold up whatever I draw X. Removal spells probably the only thing I can't do here, or I can just play the Dread Knight, which in turn we can do. It's a threat, and we now got another removal spell in hand. I like this.
Yeah, and then 2 cards in hand here for Frederick. So, ideally wants to get to a point where he can dump his hand to flip that temple. And you see Frederick looking around. I wonder what the round clock looks like. And Caleb picked up an Acklesotts. That is, we mentioned that Caleb a little bit low on life, but that one is going to buffer the life pad quite a bit.
And then we're going to play double Preacher as well. So yeah, now we're turning into the aggressor. But upkeep, we get to do this. We can destroy one of these if we need to, because we've got
Oh
the
god, get back the Urtai to pop the
yeah.
Aquasauts. This is just, oh my goodness.
Look, I'm calling it now.
This is a
My
slogfest.
my favorite creature type in Magic got boarded in and is going to win this game. And of course, that is Gitrog. The Frog Horror Mount is going to get played this game, and we're going to win.
Ooh,
I don't even know if it's in the deck. It's in the 75, but I'm
I
going to
didn't
say that
even
we're going to
notice that
rip
in the
it.
board.
We're going to play it, and it does. It's a cool card. It's a real cool card. Yep, we
Yeah,
are
maybe
going to.
we can pull that one up on screen for the folks at home that may not have seen this card. I actually did play one of these when the last RC was standard. I played Golgari, and I did have one of these in my sideboard. I will say I never boarded it in. It was just kind of the Gitrog Ravenous Ride is the card we're referring to. Yeah, it was kind of just on the sidelines doing some cheerleading. But in any case, maybe we can maybe we'll get to see it this game. There it is.
There it is. I want to see this card cast, and we're going to win the game from it being cast. I wonder if can we find out how long's left on the round? Production.
Yeah, that is a good question to ask. Now, that being said, I don't think it's going to take Frederick that much longer to win this game.
3 minutes.
3
I'm being told.
minutes. Well, 3 minutes might be enough time for Caleb to find a draw out of this, because I don't think Caleb can win this game. Like, if you just assuming these players had infinite time, I think that Frederick is a massive favorite with those two virtues in play. But yeah, I think Caleb is maybe trying to play towards a draw at this point.
So double removal spell in hand. In the next kind of semi-pause that we've got, production, can you just flick over to the modern game so we can kind of see where they're at on that? Because which game is this going to come down to? For all I know, there's going to be a huge ban. Okay, cool. Right, go back to standard. Go back to standard. Get away from that one. We don't want that one. It's, all right, so Nadu's doing Nadu things in the middle, so this game might not even matter. But Caleb's going to give it his all. A lot of land, just the mastermind in hand.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting game. Caleb has been doing a very good job at doing his best to stay in the game, even though, I feel like Frederick, for the most part, has been ahead. I would say about 90% of this game. There was a brief moment where, Caleb initially looked like he was doing pretty well until Frederick started resolving those virtues. And that was kind of the turning point. There was that big turn where Caleb had the third mastermind, drew a bunch of cards, but it's really hard to keep up with two Virtue of Persistence.
Yeah. We mentioned that off the top of the hour, just when we were seeing him cast on turn 2 as the removal spell. The fact that you're able to get this enchantment down, and every single turn we just start doing what we're doing now, just bring more things out of the graveyard. We're going to start with this Deep Cavern Bats. That's going to show the mastermind, which I imagine is going to get flashed in response. And on the other side, we're going to get ourselves another Preacher.
And yep, Caleb's last card is the Mastermind. So that is going to be played in response. Frederick will take a draw. Do we have lethal this turn is the question. So the Preacher and the Bat cannot attack. I don't believe there is the Restless Cottage. So if you presume that everything else can attack, I guess you have two removal spells, right? You just go cut down the Mastermind, go for the throat, the 1/1, and I mean that's got to be enough.
We can animate the one of the lands, right? Yeah, get rid of the token. Do some quick math. If I turn all this sideways, can I get 7 points of damage across?
Yeah, I think the best Caleb can do is block one creature with the Restless Reef, but even if that's the case, yeah, Caleb is going to pack it in. So that's going to be Frederick taking the match over Caleb, which means we're going down to Modern.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it goes. The first one of the day. Let's get to that middle table.
See, here's the thing, right? We only have 3 minutes left in the round, but that doesn't mean that this turn is going to take only 3 minutes.
Well, look, there's a Teferi on the battlefield as well. That's the alternate art to Teferi, just for everyone wondering. So if we had a response, we definitely don't. This is F6 territory. Nadu in play, Shuko's in play. We're going through the motions. Like, maybe someone doesn't know how this works. Maybe they've just come back to Magic the Gathering and thought, this format looks really cool. This is a team event. I love team events back in the day. Legacy, I remember those cards. Standard, these cards are cool. Modern, what's going on right now? what's this this combo deck? What I've heard of it.
Birds and insects. That's all you gotta know. Birds and insects.
They look like Pokemon at this point.
Different Pokemon. I think that's a Metapod.
That is a Metapod. I'm a Gen 1
Oh,
kid. What generation is your generation growing up?
Gen 1.
Okay, Gen 1. Chat, let us know. What generation of Pokemon did you grow up in?
Okay, here's the big question. If you were gonna use Pokemon cards as insects, which
Weedles.
Pokemon would you Weedle, huh? I was gonna say Venonat. I guess
Caterpies as
Venonat's
well
not
are
really
up
an
there.
insect, but
Caterpies are up there as well.
yeah.
So I
Beedrill,
actually
maybe?
had something ready for this moment. I knew at some point today we would have a moment where Nardu is doing Nardu things. And I was like, right, I'm going to find a joke. And it's a Magic the Gathering joke for you and for chat. So are you ready for it? Do you want to hear my joke, Devon?
Okay, let's go. What do you got?
Why is John Avon so bad at Magic?
John Avon?
Yep.
Oh, like the artist? I have no idea.
Because all he draws is lands. You're welcome, chat. You're welcome.
On that note,
why do Naya players not drink milk?
no idea.
Because they're lactose intolerant. Oh, 2 for 2.
Oh my god. Production, can we get a break? No, I'm kidding.
All right, I'm all out. That's my 2 jokes that I had lined up, and I've used them both on this matchup. I'm sorry, chat.
You know who else is all out? Dylan is out of cards. There's nothing in the library. I think we can now. I know we had an issue yesterday where I don't know exactly what happened. We had that 45-minute game with BBD. I don't know if like a loop could not be presented or if the loop was not being explained properly. But I would have to imagine we can get to a loop here. Yeah, I think we can.
We hope so. Charlie also hoping, but like when your team's lifeline is on, this is it. It comes down to this game, this match. If they fumble and they're not able to get the win here, and we either we pick up a draw or potentially can win on the following turn. Not entirely sure how that would work, but you got to be in it, right?
Yes, gotta be in it. So. What else can we talk about? We can talk about some more Pokemon stuff. Anything else Pokemon related that we want to discuss?
Not on camera. This is something we could discuss, but not on camera. Okay, what's your favorite Pokemon?
No. My favorite Pokemon, Snorlax.
Say mine's Snorlax as well. I love it. Love me a Snorlax. Eats, sleeps.
All he does is eat and sleep. That's all I do.
And play. And he likes music. We get that flute out. He just gets up and dances a little bit and goes again. I'm all about that.
I think Snorlax would be into heavy metal.
Yeah, I could see like a Snorlax like all goffed up or something. Like, let's get going.
Yeah.
Full Kiss makeup, just going crazy. Chat's asking, how does this loop even work? Give us a quick breakdown, Devon.
So I want to be honest with you, Will. I'm not 100% positive. I just kind of blocked it from my memory. I think it's something to do with get to a point where you have nothing in your library. Use Sylvan Safekeeper to sacrifice Boseiju and Odawara, and then Oh, okay. Well, we don't have to do that because we have Finale of Devastation. So never mind. There is no loop. Thank you so much, Dylan.
There's loads of there's so many different loops in this deck. There's infinite life gain that you can do with the Safekeeper, Urza's Saga, and Haywire Might, so you can target it, sack it in response, gain the 2 life, get the endurance trigger, and keep that. There's so many different loops. Like this deck, the best way to describe it, if you've never seen this before, it is like Hodak, but no bad matchups. Like that is, I think that was the best way someone described it to me, and I was like, that makes complete sense. But that was going to, of course, be the last game of this round, of this team event, where we are bringing you 7 amazing rounds. So we're going to step away. We're going to have a short break. We're going to turn it around. We're going to get the next team in for the feature match. So make sure you don't go anywhere, and we'll see you shortly.